just so everyone's aware, this recording will end up on YouTube. So
Well, I'm glad I'm wearing pants.
it's important.
A valuable COVID skill.
Yes.
Glad I'm sitting up next to a desk.
This is true.
So Ward, you're going to be the guinea pig. So let me know if that link works for public consumption.
All right. I haven't got it yet.
Should have been in the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. Oh,
Yeah, it's there.
Never
I'm
mind.
just, it's
Never
still
mind.
waiting to unload.
here, let me make this big. Well, yes, it works just fine.
So a
Wonderful,
little
thank you.
secret, there's that IP address there. If you just go to hamsci.org/test, that will automatically take you to that IP address.
Test, T-E-S-T.
Uh-huh. But then of course you have to know to type in SQP-2023 rules.
Okay, it took me to an IP address, but I don't see SEQP rules.
Yeah, it's not linked in anywhere. It's just kind of a standalone page at the moment.
Okay, well,
So probably best to just make note of the address there.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's 4:03 p.m. Eastern, so I guess we'll get started. Let's see. So on the agenda today, I sent it out earlier. It said today we're going to continue reviewing the rules. Once you're happy with them, we're going to build them out to the live website. We're going to discuss announcements of the 2023 and 2024 SEQPs with the amateur radio media. We're going to communicate with the contest logging software makers to have the 2023 and 2024 SEQPs and logging software. We're going to make sure we have a way that people can upload their logs with all the information needed. And it says Bruce Horn WA7BNM question mark 3830 scoreboard question mark. So with that, Gary and Gareth Perry told me that he's not able to make it today because he's at the what they call the Steve Community Workshop. Steve is a rural emission that was found by amateur aurora chasers. So they're having that workshop. I think it's up at the MIT Haystack Observatory. It's I think somewhere up there this week. So he's up there. So anyway, Gary, would you like to take it away?
Yep, let me jump over to the rules and share my screen. And there we go. Okay, so we've gone through and done some edits the last few weeks, and no use repeating ourselves. But the things that were requested or talked about last week, hopefully this is legible to everybody. I've got the 2024 dates in there. And the times for 2024 would be a shorter contest period. It looks like 10 hours because the eclipse begins about 1700 in Texas and then swings northeast and ends about 2040 UTC in Maine. So I assumed we'd want the period, as we were talking about, 3 hours prior and 3 hours after. That gives us 10 hours.
Mhm.
That sound good?
Mhm.
Okay.
yep.
Just to
Okay,
point
the other,
out, that's not quite 3 hours after. Oh, yeah, it is 2100 to 24. Got it.
okay.
Fine.
The other thing, just in reading through some of the release notes in N1MM a few days ago, there were some questions on the NM on the developers' parts about mobile and rovers. And I thought that it would make the science pretty difficult if the transmitting stations were moving around during the SEQP. And I thought it worthwhile to clarify that we have no provisions for mobiles or rovers. And everybody should be fixed in one location. So hopefully that, for the 1 or 2 people who might ask, and they read this, will be okay, I think.
I agree. The ARL has a portable category for VHF contests where you're supposed to go to a spot and stay there, not your home station spot. So we might want to note those stations that went out and operated from somewhere, as a portable, but it would not be a mobile or rover operation.
And I
Right, it
think
would
that's
be
a,
published as a known position beforehand.
Yeah, and would you want to require them to use a call sign suffix to identify that?
No, the data would not be any different than from a regular fixed station, so we don't need to complicate that. It would be a separate category.
How do you know that they're not at their home?
I'm sorry?
How do you know that they're not at their home?
You have to have them submit a log.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
Doesn't matter. So it
We-
would just
we
be
do
a
have to-
category for
We
listing.
do have to have them get us that information somehow.
Right.
So, I think last time I had people register stations through like a Google sort of form. And then we also had people submit logs. And what I would do is if someone submitted a latitude, longitude location through the log, I used that first. And then only if there was nothing available there, then I would go to qrz.com and use the latitude, longitude from there.
If you get Bruce Horn to write a log uploader, he can ask all these questions in the process of uploading. Go to contestplural.arl.org and play around with the upload function, and you can see how he handles it. And if there are questions that then invoke sub questions, he can also do that dynamically. So he would put a tag in the Cabrillo file that you get that would perhaps HQ dash category, and then you would have fixed or portable. So you'd have the data right in the file. You wouldn't have to go looking for it. Bruce is really good at this.
yeah, I was in contact with Bruce last week. We'll get to that later. That's a little bit different subject, but you're right. But I wonder, Ward, now that there are no active contests on the league's behalf right now, all the submissions are ended. I'm not sure those pages are still active. I'm not sure if we could see them.
Let's see. Bruce has a test function, but I don't know what the address is where you can experiment. It's for logging software developers and others. Just send him an email and ask him if you could have access to experiment with the log uploader. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Like I said, I talked to him last week on the another subject, so that's great. I'll continue that. That would be very helpful.
It will be. He's great.
Okay. Categories, we had no changes there this week. I'm still looking for a link for the digital mode band plans. I didn't look too hard. I was working on other things. The exchange for 2A QSOs, I tried to simplify this a little bit, especially the requirements, looking at, as you suggested, Ward, all the other ARL contests and from other sponsors too. They basically say, what are the required elements, which is accurate SIG report and 6-digit grid square. So, and then I made the sample exchange to be what you would see in most contests. And let people know if they're kind of newbies at contesting, if you want to insert call signs or say other things, that's fine. But that stuff is optional.
Looks good to me.
Okay, great.
I think you might want to put an FT8 QSO in there because people will be using that a lot.
Yeah, we've got an FT8 section down below that might fit in well. So, okay, I've got a note of that.
Yeah, we might want to, when we get closer, give more instructions to people who are using FT8 on how to generate a log, because you have to set WSJT into a contest mode. And well, actually, that's not true for sending signal report. I don't know. We'll worry about that later. But the idea being that you have to configure WSJT properly, and then there is a process or clearing your old contest log and generating a new Cabrillo file. So we should have step-by-step instructions for that.
Yeah,
Are
that's
there
probably
any
worth its own
points?
page.
Are there any points for a one-way QSO, not of a whisper nature, but just putting a signal out to see if someone's out there? So giving somebody points for just doing an open CQ.
Well, the
It's
RBN
certainly-
will grab you if you do that. So,
Right, so
there
there's certainly
are-
scientific value to that.
yeah. But
Right, I
only
remember
log-
that you were encouraging that for the previous one. For the first one.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if you had points for that or were just encouraging it.
I think just encouraging it to call CQ a lot, and it's sort of like being a check log.
Well, there's
The
a
idea
bonus
was
point.
that just because somebody's not picking you up, it
There you
is
go.
useful information for propagation.
This bonus point 9 is carried over from 2017. I
Oh.
think this would cover that scenario.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Hmm. You know, it's really kind of funny. There used to be this guy, I guess he's still around, W2NQ Portable 7. And he used to drive everybody out on the West Coast nuts because he would call CQ over and over and over, testing propagation. And here we are, testing propagation. So we should call this a W2NQ QSO party.
So we'll get to those bonus points later, but I think that that does cover it, that reception is good. Okay, let's go back up to where we were. Yeah, one thing too, the other thing that's tricky about FT8 is if you're running FT8 standalone, or if you're integrating it with N1MM, as we did in field day this year, it works pretty well. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's 100% stable, but it works pretty well. But boy, it gets funny. It's fun to configure. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So we got to consider that. I'll consider that as well. Okay, on the Whisper transmissions, I spent some time in the WhisperNet database looking at how things were working there. And one thing that I'm by no means an expert, so I'm looking for input on this. You know, we've got our 7 contests or 7 bands we're worried about. That's fine. But the Whisper database logs different, what are called modes. And 2 of those modes are the FST4W that Rob Robinette was talking about last week. And there's also a Whisper 15, which uses a 15-minute cycle instead of the normal, what I would call the standard 2-minute cycle. And looking at the database, I mean, today, those FST4Ws and Whisper mode 15 are like much less than 1% of the data, because they're intended primarily for low frequency and medium frequency bands. They really weren't intended for HF, so I don't think anybody's using them up there. So I was going to try to funnel everyone into using the standard, you know, Whisper 2, because 1, that's what most of the Windows software will create. All the Raspberry Pis that Tapper has sold will create Whisper 2, and so on and so forth.
I think that's a good idea. Let's keep an eye on usage statistics, and if it takes off like FT8 did, we may have to change, but we should specify an exact major revision of the protocol. So,
Yeah, I think there's a 2.0 and a 2.1 on Joe Taylor's pages, so I'll mention that too. So I'll make that a little clearer here, but that's what I was hoping. So hopefully that's okay with everybody. And I think that'll make it a lot easier in the data processing team too, rather than have these outliers. We'll get more consistent data. It's funneled into one node. There's the standard Whisper 2 node. And then again. So the thought was too, you know, that we want people to be part of the whole WhisperNet community, if you want to call it that. So if I had a WhisperNet receiving node at my home and be connected to whispernet.org, all the data would flow into their database, and it would make life a little bit easier. But I suppose there's some people, after listening to the Tom, K5EG the other day, that don't have a reliable internet connection where they may be operating or some such thing. And maybe they've got their Whisper net and data and a Whisper data receiving in a local file. And we don't want that to be lost. And I was going to suggest if somebody knows ahead of time that they're not going to have a connection, to just get a hold of us on the mailing list and we'll figure something out rather than trying to put a lot of details in the list. But I've got no experience doing that sort of thing. So it's just another idea I'm tossing out there.
I was noted, sorry I wasn't able to get on last week, but I was noting the idea of having GPS locked Whisper nodes, which I'm all for. Do we get particular points for locking them?
The ringtone covered you up. Could you say that again, please?
Oh, I noticed in reading the notes from last week, I wasn't able to be on, but I was particularly intrigued by the GPS locked Whisper node idea, which I have every intention and capability of doing. And in fact, I'm working on a 10 and 6 Whisper transmitter. Is that a particular mode in this, or how would you encourage that and document that?
Let's see here. Whisper transmissions, in item 10, that's one of the things I want to discuss today. Is this covered, David? Item 10 here?
Well, see, that's just a regular Whisper transmission, but I presume that you'd like to encourage people to have them GPS locked, so you could do Doppler measurements on them. Is there a way to encourage that, points or otherwise? And you would want that documented as well, so you know that the data could be analyzed as
How is the data recorded? Is it a time sequence of frequency variations or what?
Nathaniel, do you have a thought on that?
On the Whisper,
Yeah, Whisper and GPS locking them.
I think my thought for this contest, I think Whisper and GPS locking is, I think that's really good. However, I'm not sure how we're going to make good use of it,
Right.
especially in this particular contest or event.
Well, you know, we could leave it out of the solar eclipse QSO party and run a separate effort to collect the Doppler information.
Which is something we've talked about doing with, like, Steve Serwin has talked about doing something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you have
because it's not really a
well-locked
contest.
Kiwi SDRs out there and all.
Is there, I guess with the, all right, so actually it'd be really helpful if Rob Robinette were back on right now, because he was telling us last week that you can now get Doppler information with Whisper with Kiwis. So
Wow.
there is something to that. And this is also where if he came back on, you know, we keep referring everything to whispernet.org, but he has somewhat of a competing database called Whisper Daemon. Well, Whisper Daemon is the software, and then what's the actual database? Whisper. But he tells me that his version of the database is actually collects more spots and has more it actually stores this extra Doppler data that's not available in the regular whispernet.org database. So,
Okay, well, to be determined,
yeah.
but I'm interested in contributing to that effort.
So I think there is absolutely a place for the GPSDO locked WhisperNet. I just don't know enough about it to know exactly how to make it work in here. Rob Robinette may have more ideas.
Well, just make a note, maybe you know, you might be able to make provision in this, in the contest itself, points wise, to encourage people to do it. But it does sound like there's going to be the capability of using the data, collecting and analyzing the data. So that's good.
Yeah. Would
What you'd like is me to have conversations to give you continuous data over the several hours that the event happens over, as opposed to just different people randomly contacting others. You'd like to be able to watch one path as it changes over the whole time, if you could.
Yeah, well, this is where there's like two different philosophies here. The philosophy of the Solar Eclipse QSO party is really to create this, contest sort of thing that really is this kind of random standard ham radio thing. And then aside from that would be to have these people who are interested in doing, specific links to do more controlled experiments.
Might that be considered an augmentation to the WWV effort?
Yeah, it might be considered an augmentation of the WWV effort, because the WWV effort we are monitoring. We have 25 receivers that we're planning on sending out, or we will, that will all be listening to WWV and CHU. So you're going to have those constant paths. If with the Solar Eclipse QSO party, you're giving up some of that constantness, but you are creating a situation where you're able to flood more paths over a period of time with larger numbers.
So what I hear is the SEQP is also a way to bring the ham radio community, the majority of hams who can operate HF and might be interested in making anywhere from 2 to 1,000 QSOs over this period,
Yeah.
into the fold, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, and the Solar Eclipse QSO party, I think we shouldn't get away from this. The SEQP project should be as similar to a ham radio contest as possible. If we start making it too scientific, then it's going to start losing that feel of a ham radio contest.
Yeah. Well, there is the difference between having a contest, which encourages people to make transmissions of various sorts,
Right.
and then the data analysis, which is separate.
Right. That's right.
So that's why I'm saying if you had maybe some point method of recognizing GPS locked whisper over non-locked, that that would be a place for it to be encouraged within the contest.
Yeah.
Because you are encouraging whisper. You do
Right.
have points attached to it.
Do we give them 100 bonus points if they have a?
Yeah, that's
know.
the sort of thing I'm thinking.
That seems reasonable. And then maybe, if we do that, we should probably have Rob Robinette come back and say, maybe he can do a write-up on how you would actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
That works for me. I can certainly put some sort of a placeholder in the bonus section for now, and then
Yeah.
refine that over the next couple months.
Yeah, I like that plan. I think, yeah, give bonus points if you have the whisper locked system. But then let's go back to Rob Robinette, and he is intimately familiar with how that that system works to actually get useful Doppler information about it. So if we go back to him and say, how do we actually write this properly in the rules or in our documentation, I think we'll get something useful.
Okay, I can certainly, that's a small change. It's certainly easy to implement at the moment.
Yeah, I think it looks like one of the challenges in doing this is, the last solar eclipse QSO party really wasn't that long ago. It was only, what, 5-6 years ago. Yet there have really been a number of substantial changes in the way digital modes are being used in ham radio between then and now. And they're more complex and there's more options, I think, or different.
Yeah, we can see that in the additional modes, the FST4W and other things like that. So,
Yeah,
and the improvements in the Kiwis that Rob was talking about last week, there sounds like significant improvements. So,
yes.
And in addition to that, there's also a lot more use and activity in those areas on top of some of it's more complex, but some of it's been made a little simpler, a little more user-friendly. So you've got both of those going on, and you've got a huge increase in people that are involved and would be interested.
be a
Yeah.
case of we run this version of the SEQP more similar to last time, with some of these additions and enhancements, and then we've got 2024 to really bear down on some of the more technical innovations, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Or use 2023 to kind of prove those out or see how they work, I guess.
Yeah.
Because sure enough, between now and 2024, things will get even better, right? So.
Yeah, no, I think trying to include them now for the 2023, especially if we know about them.
Okay, I'll work on the GPS locking thing. Like I say, a placeholder for that. And should we invite Rob to a future call, or how should we do that?
Yes, I think that's a really good idea. We can send him these rules and talk to him about how we would incorporate these advancements with the Doppler observations in the GPS locked WhisperNet.
Okay, I'll send Rob his kind of own his own link to the rules with those questions. So we'll see what comes of it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. It's not getting simpler. It's getting better, but it's also more complex. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing changed so far as the scoring, other than the required 6-character grid square. So that's nothing. Talked about that a few times. The login requirements have not changed. Some of these screenshots for N1MM may change, and those can be updated at the last minute. But just looking at N1MM, it does need 3 or 4 small changes. The name of the contest, and there's a few other notes that I made that I'll contact the developers on, and we've obviously got a lot of time. So, but that was the next topic for today. So we'll get to that in a minute. The only thing I haven't, just Nathaniel, at some point, again, we got a lot of time. I know this worked last time, that if you uploaded your log and you got a certificate back, I know it works because I've got one on my hard drive.
Yes.
So I'll have to figure out how that works too. So.
Yeah. I had a computer science student the last time, kind of pull that together. So I think I worked with him, and I also I had developed a script in Linux that between the two of us, there were like 2 students and myself, that we came up with that script that automatically generated the that certificate. So that's probably, if we're going to make that work again, we're going to need to get someone to help with the coding. And we might be able to recruit a student here to help with that, or we might, take someone from the community to do it. I see
Okay.
Ed has his hands up. I think he's muted though.
He's talking, but he's muted.
There, I was trying to get unmuted. I'm new to the conversation, so this may already have been discussed. But is there any attempt to get people to be on each side of the Eclipse track, so that you get an indicator of whether of whether the Eclipse track is creating significant Doppler and other effects?
I think so the effort is to get people on all over the continental United States, which would give you people on both sides of the Eclipse track. So we're trying to engage as many people as possible in this.
Okay, well, the reason I was asking is possibly, I realize this is a complexity, and we may just do it afterwards for our own information. But if you have the Maidenhead grid locations, and you can see that they're on each side of the Eclipse track, that's more valuable. That's probably more valuable information than somebody who is far away talking to somebody that's even further away.
Yeah. Well, all of that will come out in the data analysis, because we'll get all of that information through the RBN PSK reporter WhisperNet logs and the logs submitted. And then you can go in, Python or whatever your language of choice is, and you're able to organize it so you just pull out the propagation pairs that you want to look at.
Right. And that was what I meant by post-processing the stuff after the event.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So our approach here is, for the pre-processing, just try to get as many hams on the air and excited about this as possible and participating in the contest, and flood the entire continental United States with transmissions, and then do all that post-processing and analysis.
And obviously that was proven to work in 2017. That worked out pretty well for you, right, Nathaniel?
It did, yes.
Yep.
Nathaniel, question.
Yeah.
Jumping back to certificates for a minute. Bruce Horn has some really nice code to generate certificates electronically. He does all of the ARL certificates, and he does all of the NAQP and NCJ certificates. He'll probably ask, once we get into a conversation more, are you guys going to want certificates? And so we can work with Bruce on that. I'm pretty sure he's
that
got
would
it all
be
done.
fantastic.
Yeah.
If Bruce is able to handle all of the log collection and the certificate generation, that would be a huge benefit to us.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously got it all set up to do that, and we would be doing another one-off, and that's going to take a lot of time for us to make sure it works right.
As long as it's a Cabrillo format file, he can handle that pretty straightforwardly on the upload. And then for the certificates, he'll tell you he just needs a text file with some information about how you want it sorted, and are you going to go first, second, third? Are we going to break it up by states or by however that works? He'll need that information in a text file, and then we got to give him a format. But he's pretty good about this. So
okay, that sounds great.
you can see an example of how this works. Go to the NCJ web site, ncjweb.com, select either of the contests, and then follow the link to get your certificate. All you have to do is enter your call sign, and all of your scores for sprints and NAQPs going back decades,
Mhm.
you can get a electronic certificate for it, and you can get an idea of what they look like.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's just really, really excellent.
Okay,
Okay,
look, yeah, I'm getting one of I have a certificate. I just generated it right now. So yep, that's perfect.
yeah, tell him I volunteered him for all this stuff.
Wonderful.
If that helps, I'll take it because
I got 16th place low power in Pennsylvania for the January 2022 NAQP.
There you go.
So
I wonder where those logs end up at though, because I mean, they've obviously got to be stored somewhere. And if they belong to the NCJ or the league, that's one thing. We would want to kind of have access to our own logs, I would think.
It's a common misconception that NCJ is part of the ARL. It's sort of the mitochondria of the contesting world. It's all the stuff is published by the ARL, but NCJ is an independent organism. And so Bruce has a big database for that. And he has his own server. So he would be able to store the logs any place you want them.
that's awesome.
Okay,
No, it does seem like there could be room for two different types of efforts. You had asked some pretty pointed science questions on information you'd like to get from these events, and a bunch of random QSOs. I can't see how you could answer those questions directly from analyzing that kind of data. Maybe you can.
I think there absolutely, Steve, there absolutely is room for two different types of effort here. And actually
what I
more
was
than
thinking of is you strategically place comlinks, and starting out with grid squares would be a good way to do it. Perhaps ask for volunteers, people who are willing to do some particular mode that has a better science payload, whether it be a GPS DO based whisper or coherent CW, or these waveforms I've been looking at, the up down chirps that could give you time difference of arrival. But if you could get some volunteers and strategically place grid squares that would be on the air over a significantly long period so that you could actually monitor the progress of the eclipse over part or all of it, and it may not be part of the QSO party.
right.
It may not be a 100-point bonus. It may just be a separate effort that you solicit volunteers for, which means we're gonna have to get together and ask for volunteers well ahead of time.
Yes. So I think we absolutely can do that, because so the last time we ran this, if you went to hamsci.org/eclipse, I had like 5 or 6 different ways you could get involved and participate in things. And the Solar Eclipse QSO party was just one of them. And so we're going to have the same thing this time. The Solar Eclipse QSO party is going to be one project. The Grape is going to be another project. There's actually going to be a VLF project as well. And then you can, if you want, you can either try to fit into one of those, or we can create a separate project just for what you want to do.
Nathaniel, where will those different projects be discussed?
So that is a good question. Where I think that, so we have a couple, again, we have 2 options there. One is we can use the time slots we already have for talking about this, which is the Grape 10 a.m. Telecon and this 4 p.m. Telecon. So we can either fit them into there, or we can create new Zoom sessions that are splinter sessions for those individual projects. Now, I think with Steve's thing, I think we can probably fit that into this time slot, because hopefully we're going to get the mechanics of the Solar Eclipse QSO party kind of underway fairly soon. And then once we get the rules published and we get the word out and we get that grant submitted, then we can move ahead and we can, you know, spend more time on other topics like doing the project that Steve is talking about, or also just science analysis related to these things. So that's one possibility. Another possibility, another way we could do it. So we have breakout rooms too. So like during the same time slot, Steve, let's say you wanted to get a group of people. Let's say you identified a group of people that you wanted to do your project with, where you do the set measurements across set paths. You could still meet at the same time. We can all start here together, and then we can have breakout rooms. So you could have a separate session to discuss that. And then if someone has a question, they can jump back to the other session. And then that way, sometimes we'll have unified talks, unified sessions together. And then sometimes we'll have like breakout ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that, of course, this used to be the science session here. So
Yeah, I think we're getting to the point where we have a lot of stuff going on. And I really do think there are enough people around the United States and the world to kind of do all of these things. But I think we have to start having a system of like breaking out, and, you know, some people are going to work on one project more and other people are going to work on another project more. What do you think about that, Steve?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good way to
So-
organize it.
I think I've talked to you before about you taking the lead on that point-to-point sort of discussion. So if you want to start assembling a team of people to work on that, you're certainly welcome to use the HamSci listserv to try to recruit people. And you can invite them to this telecon, and then I'll be happy to open a breakout room. So if you find that the discussion of the SEQP rules or what we're doing here isn't that interesting to you, you're welcome to go into the breakout room and work with your team over there.
Good plan. I'll jot all that down.
And then hopefully, you know, we do want to have some coordination between these things, because, you know, an important thing to make this work is we have to make sure that the SEQP doesn't totally swamp the ham radio bands, that you're not able to do what you want to do because, you know, there's not enough bandwidth to do it. So we might end up wanting to put some restrictions on the frequencies that the SEQP runs on, or we may want to. We already have that in a way, you know. Maybe Steve, you focus on the WARC bands, the 60, 30, 17, and 12, since you're not doing contesting, you're doing more of an experiment. So maybe that could go on the 60, 30, 17, and 12 meter bands. You know, but we should have some way to make sure that one experiment doesn't stomp on top of another experiment.
Yeah, those are all good thoughts.
Yeah, they are.
Might I add, or just ask a question about one more possible experiment? You might have already discussed this, and that would be moon bounce. So we're getting ready for moon bounce, and I was just looking at during the partial eclipse of 2023 we have a new moon on October 14th. So all day long we could be doing moon bounce, and then you can reach Europe and Japan and further away places with Q65.
I think that sounds good. And again, if that's something you want to lead, let me show you. I'm going to share my screen.
what a coincidence, having an eclipse and a new moon on the same day.
Yeah, it does not happen during the full eclipse in 2024, but it does in 2023.
What?
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah. The astronomers on here are getting concerned.
But if the moon is dark, you can't get any signal back off of it. And this is the moon.
So hold on one second. let me show everyone again how the website was organized last time. Are you saying the Hamsite website right now?
Yes.
Okay. So last time, if you went to hamsci.org/Eclipse, and even still today, you will come up with this. And if you go down here, you can click Get Involved. And then I had a list of different experiments. So I had one for the solar eclipse QSO party. I had one link just if you wanted to learn how to set up a reverse beacon network. So each of these are a different way that you could get involved. So I think we could do the same thing this time where we have, the solar eclipse QSO party listed. We have the point-to-point HF monitoring listed. We could have the grape project listed, and then whoever is designated as the team leader for that particular experiment, I can give them access to the website, and they can build out their portion of the website and run their own experiment. And so like Dan, if you wanted to go and do a moon bounce one, we could create, a moon bounce section. But in order for this to happen, we're going to have people identify themselves as being team leads and wanting to do this, because I would love to do all of it, but I just don't. I don't have the capacity. So I think they're all really good ideas. But I think we have to really have leaders from the community champion the things they're interested in. Ed, is your hand still raised?
No, I'm re-raising my hand, and I wanted to let you know that my wife Gladys and I, Gladys N3DXW, we regularly travel to solar eclipse, especially total solar eclipses. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is putting a whisper transmitter directly under the path of the thing. And I would really like to get a GPS disciplined oscillator based whisper transmitter for several of the bands, and then have that as a targeted, get people to targeted receive that. And if they have a if they have the ability to really identify the actual frequency, then we would be able to get Doppler shift data directly off of that whisper transmitter.
So I think that's where we should bring Rob Robinette back, because he was on this call last week, and he was talking about exactly that sort of thing, and how he does have a network of Kiwi SDRs that are capable of receiving those sorts of GPS locked whisper transmissions and actually recording good data from them. And he said now that he has the receivers, he needs a network of transmitters. So that would fit very well into that.
Right. The other thing that I wanted to be aware of is there are also partial solar eclipses which don't fully eclipse as in terms of either total or annular, and we could make use of these as well. I have a full list of them.
Okay. What days are those?
Well, there is an eclipse season that occurs every 6 months, approximately. It rotates very slowly around the clock, around the years. But I can pull up a list and give them to you. I don't have it directly in front of me right now.
Great.
Doesn't Christina keep track of those?
She has been doing eclipses around the world. So I think she's been focused mostly on total eclipses, but I think she has done some partial as well. What I would suggest for this particular effort right now, I suggest at the moment we focus on the 2023 annular and 2024 total for now, because those are the really big ones that we can't screw up. And we really need to put our full effort towards those, because those are kind of the biggest ones, and they're the ones that like NASA and NSF are going to be paying the most attention to right now. And I think we're also yeah.
And they also are the ones that will occur soonest over the United States.
Yeah. So I think what we do is we try to get our projects in order for those two eclipses. And then as we get a little more bandwidth, or as we get a little more stability in what we're doing, then we can branch out to some of these other smaller ones.
Yeah, as a contest, that's pretty daunting to have more than just the two. But for scientific endeavor, yeah, Christina, I think, would be the one to talk to about covering the partials as well. I think she has done partials as well as the totals.
She has done a little bit. So I think that's good, but I think we really should focus on these two big ones right now. And then I think I'm fully encourage things besides the solar eclipse QSO party and the GRAPE project. But if those are going to happen, we have to have community members who want to lead those things. Go out, find people. You're welcome to use the HamSci listserv to do that. And then you can work with me, and we can create a space on the HamSci website to support that part of the project. But I think we have to have those leaders for those different areas. Otherwise, I know I'll just get spread too thin.
No, of course you shouldn't carry all of it.
It won't work. It'll just fall apart.
You, like everything, have limited bandwidth.
Yep. And not only that, one of the whole goals of citizen science is to let the citizens actually drive the bus, as it were. So have the chance to go pursue the things that they're interested in, and have the ability to participate and take on leadership roles themselves. So I think that's a good way for that to happen. Okay, I think we're getting close to the end of our time here. We still have a few minutes left. I think, like last week, I want to try to write a nice little recap of what we talked about today that I can send out. So we can say here that Gary AF8A led a discussion of the current rules draft. These are posted at the HamSci test website of the current SEQP 2023-2024 current rules draft. Gary, were there any significant changes that I should make a note of here?
As of today's discussions, no, I don't think so.
Okay. No significant changes were made as a result of today's discussion. We are going to ask Bruce Horn, WA7BNM, to handle the log upload system and certificate generation.
And on that point, Ward, you were serious. I can drop your name when I get back to Bruce, because that seems like a heavy ask. I know he's really good at that stuff, but considering how many contests and other things going on, so.
Well, he tries to make it so he doesn't have to do anything different for all the different contests. And,
right. No, he's got a good base built up. I know that. So
yeah, I was just asking him if he'd be interested in supporting it. Nothing greatly different than the NCJ and ARL contest.
Got it. Thank you.
And that's one of our goals, is to make the SCQP as contest-like as possible. Okay, so I will say that we reiterated that a major design goal of the SCQP is to make it as ham radio contest-like as possible. This is to encourage as many hams as possible to participate in a very ham radio manner. That's a wonderful sentence.
That's quite a
Okay.
sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, word's a writer, I'm sure.
One other thing, we did talk about the possibility of supporting portable stations. And there is a huge community of Parks on the Air people and Summits on the Air people who would be willing to do a 10-hour
Okay.
activation. So
It's not just a
Yeah,
possibility.
that's a great idea to include that.
I mean,
I
last
was going to say so too. Good idea.
that wasn't just a possibility. That was something that was strongly encouraged the last time. Like, people got extra points if they went outside during the
Yeah.
eclipse and were so. The SCQP needs to allow for fixed portable operations.
Yeah, I'll add a paragraph in the FAQs about that, so it's really clear.
yeah,
This
Yeah.
will allow
I
people
suggest
to set up a field day. Let's see, field day or soda style outside.
I would include Parks on the Air, POTA.
Yeah, parks as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
POTA, comma, soda, right.
Soda POTA.
POTA.
Yeah.
Include that
Right.
in the bonus points.
It is. There is a spot there, David.
Yeah. Field day
Very good.
or soda style outside to operate. The stations should keep a fixed location throughout the SCQP to make it possible to properly analyze the data. So say, e.g., no mobile category.
Oh, say, Gary, I've got a minor correction for your rules page, and that is the 2024 total eclipse is April 8th, not 24th. So it should be April 8th. That way the astronomers are correct. We have new moon both times.
April 8th.
So
Okay,
that was the problem.
have to look up the source of my data, what I did wrong. Okay, thanks, Dan.
That's a very good catch. That one's very important.
Yeah, that would have made a mess of things.
Uh,
Oh, you
that-
think it was yesterday? Oh,
now that makes a whole lot more sense. Okay. So no mobile category. All right, so we while the SDQP is supposed to be contest like, HamSci also intends to support other experiments during the eclipses that are more scientifically rigorous in their design. For instance, okay, let's see, the grape WWV Doppler experiment point to point HF link studies suggested by Steve Serwin, WA5 FRF, Earth, Moon, Earth, events suggested by Dan Lane. I don't have your call sign memorized. I have
AD0CY, yeah.
ED0CY. VLF studies led by Georgia Tech, Scranton, Georgia Tech, Morris Cohen, Scranton, Jonathan Rizzo, I'll just say him. I'm more supporting it. All right. And others. So we can do these, each of these experiments can have their own link on hamsci.org/get on a page similar to on a new page similar to that one. For this to happen, these new projects have to have a community, a self-identified community leader to take charge of them. Nathaniel will help support by providing access to the website and HamSci Google group. Okay. Anything else you want to say here? All right, for next time, we are, okay, we really did not discuss, probably have to follow up on this, right?
Right. Yeah, some of those we need to keep on the list.
I would say that we have to keep all of these on the list for the next time. I might say, discuss how asking Bruce Horn for support. Discuss if Bruce Horn said he will support the SEQP with log uploading and certificate generation. Okay, continue. I think that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, those are all things we need to do, so.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like we're still working on getting these rules going, and then we need to, and hopefully next week we can be happy enough with them that we can start building out the website with the new structure.
Right. Yeah, I plan to send them out and ask for comments from a couple of people and this week, and then let's kind of like freeze them next Thursday and see what we can do.
Okay. Oh, I also know I wanted to say, these new groups can also have time during the existing telecons, either as part of the main session, if appropriate, or as part of a breakout room. Okay, Ed has his hands up again.
Yeah, these may or may not be useful for the people, but there is a partial solar eclipse this month, October 25th, that will cover Eastern Europe to India. And there is a total solar eclipse on April 20th, 2023 in Australia and Indonesia.
Great.
These are the two that are occurring before the annular eclipse here in October of 2023.
And you know what we can do with that information, Ed? When we build out our new website, so last time I had it, if you go to hamside.org.eclipse, you would get to this page first. And
Right.
I had information about eclipses in general. So we could possibly have a list, we could state that the October 14th and April 8th eclipses are the ones that we're really studying, but we can also have links to the partial eclipses as well for people who are interested in that.
Right, and one of the things is there are some scientific experiments more so than the contest type thing, where we might want to run some stuff at these other eclipses.
I absolutely agree.
By the way, my information, I have a friend, well, I know him a little bit, Fred Espinack, and he is the guy who calculates all of the tracks for these things, and I'm using his information.
That's great. Yeah, Mary Lou and I, we got to hear Fred Espinack speak at NEAF, the Northeast Astronomy Forum, back in like 2016, I think, or early 2017.
Well, I have a lot. He's given me a lot of information, so I have all the numbers in case we really have to go deep.
Yeah, he was the keynote at Stellafane before the last total eclipse.
How's that? Great. And in the next few weeks, we may end up having some visitors from NASA come to our telecon as well. So NASA Citizen Science, the people from headquarters, they're very interested in what we're doing. So they may come in and drop in on us and try to understand what we're doing even more. Okay, this is wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye.
73 all.
73.
Thanks.